Sir, this area is for first-class passengers, not retirees. The elderly soldier stood up, clutching his worn military ID card. The attendant snatched the card, tossed it onto the counter, and signaled security. But 30 minutes later, the VIP lounge doors flew open. A general walked in, his face cold as steel. He didn't say much, just commanded through clenched teeth, "All of you, remove your name tags and leave this place immediately. If you believe service should never be forgotten, follow to see what happened next." Gerald Knox was a 76-year-old retired Marine Corps officer who had served honorably for more than 30 years and received the Medal of Honor for extraordinary valor in combat. He was flying to Washington to attend a memorial ceremony honoring fallen soldiers from his old unit, men who had died under his command decades ago, but whose faces he still saw in his dreams. The airline had arranged an economy class ticket, but because he was an honored guest, Gerald received a VIP lounge access card through a veteran support program. The special pass was meant to provide comfort to those who had once sacrificed comfort for their country. He entered the lounge wearing a white button-down shirt, his old military jacket with faded patches, and a cap bearing his unit's insignia. Nothing flashy, just quiet dignity earned through decades of service. Settling into a chair, he pulled out a dog-eared military tactics book he had carried through 3 tours of duty. The margins were filled with his handwritten notes, observations that had once saved lives. After a while, an attendant approached, her voice laced with irritation. "Excuse me, you don't qualify for this lounge. Do you have a first-class ticket?" Gerald produced his invitation letter and the special veteran access card, but she barely glanced at them before shaking her head dismissively. "This isn't valid. Which program issued this? We don't recognize it." In full view of other passengers, she grabbed his card and tossed it onto the reception counter like discarded trash. Several travelers glanced his way, whispering among themselves, while others averted their eyes as if he were an intruder who had wandered in by mistake. A security guard stepped forward, gesturing toward the exit. "We need to maintain high standards for our VIP guests." Gerald didn't argue or raise his voice. He simply said quietly, "I once maintained standards for an entire nation." The words hung in the air, unacknowledged as Gerald gathered his few belongings. His weathered hands that had pulled wounded comrades to safety, hands that had folded countless flags for presentation to grieving families, now trembled slightly as he closed his book. He stood with the straight-backed posture ingrained through decades of military service. Though retirement had added years to his frame, nothing could diminish the inherent dignity in his bearing. As he walked toward the exit, a young family with children moved aside, the parents pulling their curious children closer as if Gerald's presence was somehow inappropriate in this temple of travel privilege. No one spoke up. No one intervened. The silence of the bystanders was as cutting as the attendants' words. Gerald left the lounge and sat silently in the cold corridor, still holding his book, its pages a testament to battles fought and wisdom earned. A custodian recognized him and approached hesitantly. "Mr. Knox, isn't it? We met at the military appreciation event last year. I'm truly sorry about this situation, sir." But the same attendant quickly reprimanded the custodian. "Don't complicate matters. This is a restricted area." An elderly passenger stood up, intending to speak on Gerald's behalf, but was immediately intercepted by the lounge manager. "Please return to your seat, sir." "This doesn't concern you." A young staff member quietly recorded the entire incident on his phone and sent it to Gerald's daughter, Colonel Amanda Knox. Amanda currently served as deputy commander at Fort Bragg and was in a meeting with General Thomas Keegan, the Northeast Joint Forces commander. Upon viewing the video, General Keegan said just one sentence: "Prepare the vehicles. We're going to pick up a real hero." 30 minutes later at the airport, a convoy of 3 military vehicles pulled up directly to the VIP entrance. General Keegan strode into the lounge, his eyes sharp as a blade. "Who is the manager here?" The attendant who had ejected Gerald stepped forward, her confidence visibly shaken. "Yes, that's me." He didn't let her finish. "I've just watched footage of how you treated Colonel Knox. From this moment forward, I don't want to see anyone from this shift serving veterans again." The general turned and bowed his head respectfully. "Colonel Knox, on behalf of the entire system, I apologize. People should stand when you enter a room. not push you out the door." The attendant stammered, suddenly recognizing the gravity of her error. "We didn't know he was important. There was no indication in our system." General Keegan turned slowly, his voice lowered but somehow filling the entire room. "That's precisely the problem. You shouldn't need to know someone's rank to show basic respect. The uniform he wore for 30 years earned him that right, whether he's wearing it today or not." Other passengers in the lounge had fallen silent, many now realizing they had witnessed and tacitly approved a profound injustice. A young lieutenant who had accompanied the general approached Knox. "Sir, it would be an honor to escort you to Washington. Your seat on our transport is ready whenever you are." Knox looked around at the now silent lounge, at the staff being instructed to remove their name tags, at the manager frantically making calls to corporate headquarters. "I didn't want special treatment," he said quietly. "Just the courtesy any person deserves." General Keegan's response resonated throughout the lounge. "Some debts can never be repaid, but acknowledgement is where we start. If you agree that those who took bullets to protect our flag deserve respect, type honor to ensure no one is forgotten simply because they've retired." General Keegan requested that military media release the information publicly, accompanied by an official apology. The original video and footage of General Keegan dismissing the entire staff spread widely, accumulating over 14 million views in just 2 days. Veterans nationwide shared images of a younger Gerald Knox, a man who had once rescued 6 fellow soldiers during an ambush operation when everyone else had given up hope. The photos revealed what the lounge staff had failed to see: not just an elderly man in dated clothing, but a warrior whose courage had changed the course of lives. The airline immediately organized a press conference, dismissed the lounge management team, and invited Colonel Knox to become the face of their new Honor First program, a complete overhaul of their approach to serving military personnel, active or retired. During a television interview that went viral, Gerald simply stated, "I don't need apologies. I just hope those who wear uniforms after me won't be forgotten like I was today." The Military Academy in Virginia named their new reading hall Knox Hall, housing the handwritten notebooks where Gerald had documented military tactics and ethics throughout his career. Instructors now use these texts to teach leadership principles to cadets. The custodian who had recognized Gerald received a commendation and was appointed supervisor of the new Veterans Support at Airports Initiative, a program designed to ensure no service member ever experienced such disrespect again. A plaque was installed at the entrance of the redesigned VIP lounge. "We welcome all passengers, especially those who once kept this land safe." Gerald received thousands of handwritten letters from strangers across the country. "We owe you, not for victory, but because you never demanded recognition." The airline CEO personally visited Gerald's home, bringing with him the company's new military service policy that would be implemented across all their locations worldwide. As he handed the document to Gerald, he explained, "Your experience exposed a failure in our culture, not just our rules. We've created mandatory training for every employee about the visible and invisible sacrifices of service members." Military families began sharing their own stories of disrespect faced after retirement, how uniforms commanded respect that somehow disappeared with civilian clothes. A national conversation emerged about how society often honors the symbol, but forgets the person. Colonel Amanda Knox, speaking at a military leadership conference, challenged her peers. "My father faced bullets with less fear than he faced dismissal in that lounge. Our mission doesn't end when the uniform comes off. We protect our own, always." The young staff member, who had recorded and sent the video, was hired by the Veterans Affairs Office to develop a training program on recognizing and honoring service. His first presentation began with, "Respect isn't about recognizing medals. It's about recognizing humanity." Gerald himself remained humble through it all. When asked if the incident had changed his view of civilian life, he shook his head. "I didn't serve for recognition. I served so people could live freely enough to make mistakes, and good enough to correct them when they do." What began as an incident of disrespect transformed into a movement of remembrance, reminding a nation that heroes don't stop being heroes when they hang up their uniforms. Gerald Knox still lives simply in his wooden cabin near the forest, still wakes at 5 a.m., brews coffee, reads books, and exercises his memory by reciting the names of every soldier who ever served under him. When his grandson asked, "Grandpa, do people deserve what you did for them?" Gerald smiled. "It's not about them, it's about you. If you grow up to be decent, then I didn't fight in vain." An ancient oak tree at the airport has been named after him, the Knox tree, shade from one who once sheltered an entire generation. The incident sparked a nationwide review of how businesses accommodate veterans. New federal guidelines now require all transportation hubs to provide dedicated spaces for former service members, not as luxury, but as acknowledgement. The lounge attendant who had dismissed Gerald eventually wrote him a letter of profound apology. His response was characteristically gracious. A signed copy of his military ethics book with a note that read, "Understanding comes to us all at different times. Welcome to yours." Honor doesn't demand recognition, but we, the grateful, must protect it until the end. If you believe respect doesn't end when a soldier removes their uniform, subscribe to TT Hero Stories. TT Hero Stories, because some heroes never stop serving.